recording, and you can start whenever you feel so.
So just a second, one more thing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 6 from the Sustainability Working Group webinar series. We are here today to welcome Karl Eldebo. He is going to present to us about collaborative business modeling for circularity, a return on experience and a puzzle-based approach. Karl is a teacher and PhD student at the Division for Environmental Technology and Management at Linköping University. And he is looking for ways to create a more sustainable works through innovation and entrepreneurship. Karl has 15 years working with innovation and entrepreneurship in Linköping as a business coach at the TTO of Linköping University and at Almi, a state-owned management firm for SMEs. He's a startup entrepreneur and networker and works with societies for startups and and SMEs. And he does work as a strategic management consultant in the corporate world and consults on innovation. He's currently also a researcher, I think, Karl at Linköping as well, in the Environmental Technology Management department. Please welcome Karl. Thank you very much for joining us and presenting to us today.
Thank you, and very nice to be here. And thank you for the nice presentation, Kai. I'm going to jump right into slides. We're going to break up in smaller groups. I think now we're starting to reach the point where we need smaller groups when we get there. And please, we are quite a small group now, so if you have questions or stuff that you want to raise during the presentation, we have time for that. We also have time for questions and comments and discussion after my presentation, just so that you know. Let's see if I can share and see you at the same time. Oh, yes.
Looks good.
Here we go. Short notice on that circle thing there. I asked ChatGPT to create a logo for a course in circular economy. And somehow I couldn't get the pi sign out of it. I think the AI thought that, well, if we talk about circles, we have to have that P sign there. So I think it's quite nice, so I kept it. What I'm going to talk about today is very briefly around circular economy and business modeling, and then deep dive into an article which me and Mattias Lindahl, one of the creators of the ISO standard for circular economy, has been working on and now waiting to get published. Unfortunately, it's not out there yet, but it's coming. How we create business together, we can call it. Very shortly, I've been working with innovation for basically all of my working life. I'm a PhD student, but I'm a bit older than most PhD students. I've been working 15 years in what we call here in Sweden, the innovation support system. Which means that we have some kind of public system which supports innovators. I'm working at different parts of that. I've also been an entrepreneur in 3 femtech startups. None has flown very well, but it's been an interesting journey every time. And right now I focus my research on how startups and industrial companies can scale environmental innovations together, whereas circular innovations also fall under that environmental umbrella that we create. During my spare time, I have 3 kids, which take up a lot of time, but I also love reading a lot of sci-fi, which goes quite nicely with technology innovation, and I love going to Italy. Now, I would love to hear just shortly about who you are. For everyone who knows how Menti works, you can open menti.com and fill in that number, or you can just click the link that I posted right now in the chat. 3 short questions just to grasp a little bit of where you come from and what you are doing.
Can you please show the number again for the
Oh,
ID?
sorry.
I don't see the link in the chat for the Menti.
Oh, sorry. It was the wrong link. I dropped the link that I got just again. Here we go. That's the real link.
Cool. Thank you.
We just concealed marketing for the conference.
Is there a question that's repeated, like where do you work?
I have unfortunately lost my second screen.
Okay.
That's why I'm furiously dabbing about here. It just went black.
Okay. I was just like add some information.
Yeah, you can give multiple answers, it says. So. Or click next question, which takes you to the third one. Okay. Yeah.
Now it's kicking. Wonders of technology. I'm trying to show you what I'm seeing. Product tech, marketing communications, HR. Great. And I also know a little bit more about you. And I hope my presentation will be on the right level. It's always hard to talk about theories like the canvas when you don't really know the people you are talking to. Firstly, just a short intro. Hello, everyone who just dropped in. You didn't miss anything interesting, just who I am. Shortly about the circular economy, just to set the scene, what we are talking about. This is a slide that I usually use in my teaching. The most sustainable alternative is also not to do anything, usually. But that's not how we get a working economy. We have to be second best, usually, I try to say. And what is that then? The ISO standard that is out there, sorry? No? It says that circular economy is an economic system which contributes to sustainable development. A lot of focuses on resources, stocks, flows, and especially that the virgin resources are kept as low as possible. The inflow of virgin resources are kept as low as possible, which means that circular in this case is basically that we need to spin or loop these existing extracted resources around as much as we can. I like this model from the ICC and EY, came out last year. It actually shows a little bit more about what we talk about, at least when some of us talk about when we talk about circular economy. We take something, we make something, then we use it, and then we try to loop the resources that we use through different R strategies, refurbishing, repairs, remanufacture, repurpose. Especially the repurpose one I like here. That's what we do with a lot of companies, taking one kind of resource that has been one kind of product to kind of put it into maybe sometimes a completely different use without degrading it too much. So basically, it's more about looping than being circular. But when we talk about circular, this is one notion that I have, at least, that few companies have the ability to be circular on their own. When we talk about circular flows, we all usually we talk about a lot of companies having linear business models actually collaborating to create a circular flow. So basically, the business model of the company is still linear. They take stuff, they do stuff, they use stuff, and then they sell stuff. But rightly combined, we get a system of systems which is circular. As an example, the makers of a bike usually don't do repairs on this bike. In some branches you do, but this results in a system with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of companies, a lot of users, with sometimes quite complex relationships when you want to formalize the relationships, or in the other hand, no relationship, although they all contribute to the same circular system, which makes it even more complex. And as I gather, I don't think that anyone here has not dealt with a complex system and system mapping. And this is what we usually do when we start working with a company. And when I say we, I mean the university, trying to understand how they fit into any kind of circular economy. Is that mapping their existing infrastructure and system that they operate in, and to see how can we change that to become more circular. But somewhere in these system mappings, we have some kind of business model. Because usually, as I said, what we see is that company A produces something, sell to a customer group. They use this thing for something. And here, of course, you have a time variable. We talk about months in some extreme cases, maybe seconds when we do healthcare, or multiple years, decades, when we talk other kinds of products. And then these things end up in company B. And this company deploys some kind of R strategy, using a little bit of new resources, having maybe some kind of different outlets. But in the end, this kind of continues. And here we can have what we call today a circular economy, which sometimes is not that circular, basically. And this is what I have in mind when I say that most circular systems, most systems in the circular economy have linear business models. I talk about business models. Before I say what I think is a business model, I would love to hear what you think about a business model. And now I know that you all know each other, or most of you, but I will just do that. I separate you into breakout rooms 2 and 2. So you can, if you don't know each other, present shortly who you are and what you do. And then you talk about what's a business model for you. And then you can drop just a short notice on this Menti, either using that number or using the link that I dropped in the chat. And I will see where that went. Here we go. I will divide you into group rooms, and how many are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need 5 group rooms, and they will close automatically in 5 minutes. See you soon. You have to click accept to be moved to the room that you are designated to.
Hi, Hamza. So we talk about what a business model is. That's a good question. I have no clue. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Well, from what I understood is like a model that captures how a company generates value and capital out of it, or revenue out of it, to be profitable, to make the business working, and understand its environment, or stakeholders, and so on.
I think the environment is already advanced.
Or maybe the environment,
Okay.
like the stakeholders, who is like the competition, how is the market, and so on.
Map its territory. I don't know. I'll just add that for me to Adlib. So what I put here is a model that captures how a company captures value or revenue to make the business working and understand its stakeholder, map its territory. So and we add territory, okay. And I guess the environment would be now, obviously its environment is right, but it's not yet in a sustainable sense, the environment, right? We agree? So
Sorry?
so when you say environment, that's obviously right. My comment was just being about the fact that it's not yet a sustainable environment, right? It's not in a vision of anything like that.
More like stakeholders and so on.
Yes, exactly. So and understand its stakeholders, map its territory, dash its environment, and we can put hopefully trying to embed itself, like not to make a weird term from systems engineering, gracefully in its environment, meaning harmlessly in its environment. I don't know. If we try to add the level of what we're trying to accomplish here, some positive forward-looking, maybe a model that captures how a company captures value of to make business work. And understand its stakeholder, map its stakeholders. I'm just adding this here, stakeholders. How much time? Oh, we have 30 seconds left. Stakeholders, dash, map its territory, its environment, hopefully trying to embed itself gracefully in inverted commas. Am I allowed to do this, or would it be distorted from what the notion in engineering is, or embed itself harmlessly
in the environment?
Harmlessly.
That will be like the sustainable business model.
Yes. Well, I first have a non-sustainable one, and then we want to. Okay, it says it's finishing in 58 minutes. Do we add the level of, hopefully reaching a?
Yeah. You can like write the non-sustainable, or conventional business model and sustainable business
sustainably. Model. Oops, it doesn't.
Business
sustainably. It doesn't take more. I leave it like that. It doesn't. I don't know whether it's because of this sustainably. No, I think either I reached the limit.
I think there is a limit here. There is like 200
so
limit.
I leave it. It says I can do multiple, but I leave it at the last and end in the middle of sustainability. So we can either write another one, I don't know, for regenerative business modeling. So we leave the breakout. It's been a pleasure, sir. See you in a second.
Would you like to listen to us, or just
see here? Everything's shutting down now. Now we should all be back, right? Yeah, 10 people. We've lost someone. Here comes the last people. And we have 4 descriptions here. A basic. That's good.
Turn off my audio.
I think we did it right.
Right. One's very theoretical, like create, deliver, and capture value. Those are the 3 cornerstones in a business model, according to theory. A model that captures. We have that one too. Perfect. How often do you talk about business models in your day-to-day life?
Every day.
All the time.
Maybe all the time, but not explicitly. So maybe once in a while we talk about the business model, but not every day.
By coincidence, I was reviewing one yesterday.
So actually, we put them for short-term and long-term, so to see how we can create our business for them. being in higher education, the business model we have a Industry 2.0 organization in an Industry 5.0 world, and the business model is extremely broken, and we're going to see some major changes. So either I use the terminology, if I'm talking to engineers, I may not use that terminology, but it's in the back of my mind as a value exchange and how we create profit and all the rest.
Very interesting to hear. Those of you that talk about business models every day, is it on the product level category, or is it company wise, or how do you apply the concept?
So go, Alan.
So I was reviewing the enterprise business model for my part of the organization as context for the work I'm doing, helping update our engineering processes. So we were looking for how the engineering bit fits into the business bit. That's what we were up to.
So in education, in theory, the values being created is the education, the training, the skills that the students have so that they can actually get a job in the world. And that's becoming more and more difficult. And if you look at how we actually educate, it's very much a factory model where you come in, you take this course, this course, this course, this course. It's all time boxed and it's not learning boxed. So, somebody says they get a C and they move on to the next course, but they don't have a fundamental understanding of the basics. They need to have a job. How can this make sense from a value perspective to sort of move them along rather than say, hey, no, you need to stay here until you actually learn the things that you need to learn in order to be productive? And the business model that we have is this factory model of input and output, time-based, and it's very broken and doesn't serve the needs of students, and society today. And so that's the issue, is how do you take the system that we have today and get it to move to another system? Because the tenure track system and all the rest makes it extremely aortic. It doesn't want to change. It's built in stone, if you will. So that's the business model discussion that we have every day.
Interesting. Thank you. Other people? Yes. Yep.
I think the business model for the different industries I see different. So I used to work in the Jaguar Land Rover. So when I was working there, it's a business model when you have a new idea, how you can make a revenue. That's sort of a business model. So you make sure this is going to make this business, your product and the business together, going to make cost-effective delivery of the revenue for 30 years. So if you fail, I think then the curve is like a first 2 years, 3 years is going to be very high. Then eventually it goes down and you get another roadmap is going to shift along with the business model. So that works very well. And the semiconductor industry, you always make sure your roadmap is 30, 35 years of roadmap. The business model supports you and the technology supports you to deliver billions of ICs. That's something like that. But the defense industry, I'm so sorry, I'm still confused. What is a business model? Is that the process, you concentrate in the process, or you want to stay in the technical or another area? I think now it's like everything is moving towards to AI. So the business model, something like, can we jump into the business model? But I still feel all these business models, you need a right roadmap, the right data to make the value. I think someone mentioned is like, you need to consolidate exactly. This is going to be our business model, not thousands of processes, not going to work your business model and you will be lost. So that's, I think for me, business model, I want to make money. If it doesn't work, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. And I mean, it's a great exercise that sometimes when we asked to kind of show that, okay, what is the business model, especially for one company? It's quite easy to get an answer, but it varies a lot. And I think that this study from Foss and Säby, well, made a huge study about what is actually a business model. It could be like a blueprint of the company's organization. It could be a part of the company's value delivery, like we were talking about, like how do we create value for our customers that actually give us money. It can also be something that is successful, especially when we look at competitors or other sectors in industry that we say that, oh, they have a successful business model. What is it actually that we mean? Well, usually it means that today that they moved to product as a service or something like that, but it could also mean something else. It can also be an innovation. And here's where most companies that I work with in the circular economy are interested in this part. Like, how can we change what they say is their business model to become part of the circular economy, or to enter some kind of circular flow, or to become better at this, to become more sustainable. If we look really further back, I mean, the business model theory started basically around the millennia, when a lot of startups emerged with a lot of new technology, which means the internet. Osterwalder in 2005 published an article where he said that the focal firm's strategy and organization and their approach to ICT, basically, like the new technology used, somehow incorporated the business model. And I think that the reason to why we started talking business models here was because of the new possibilities to make money out of this new thing we call the internet. Then a little bit later, Richardson was the first one actually to talk about creation, deliver, and capture, something that has been some kind of the three pillars of a business model right now. How do we create value? How do we deliver this to the customer? And how do we propose to customers to buy it? And how do we capture some kind of value during this? And value is quite indefinite here. Is it money? Is it some other kind of value that we do? And then we have the business model in practice and the business model innovation in practice. 2010's Otto Namitt wrote that clearly technological innovations by itself does not automatically guarantee business or economic success. Great technological wonders, it still needs some kind of vehicle to come to customers to earn money. And Chesbrough at the same time said that we can construct maps of business models to make them a source of experiments, to consider it alternative combinations of things, of all these three, then capture, delivery, and creation. And at the same year, this one dropped. Somewhat a banger, if you would call it that, on business strategy literature. Business Model Generation has now sold more than 1 million copies, which I think is a few books up there, which made Osterwalder and Pigneur somewhat the household name of business modeling. Just shortly, so that we all just refreshing your memory, since you have all worked with this. If we put these deliver, create, and capture, the business model canvas uses the value proposition to reach customer segments through channels and building customer relationships. Those are the pillars of delivering value, which also it's quite interesting because the value proposition here is not the solution sold. If you sell a bike, the value proposition could be getting to your job or go out exercising. And that's what they try to capture by calling it value proposition. Creating value is defined by three other cornerstones: key resources, together with key partnerships and key activities, makes the company able to create value. And then capturing value. Somehow revenue streams are there, cost structures are there due to the value propositions that you have. And this is the way you capture value in the difference between these. So you have the business model canvas. the value proposition in the middle. And this is the thing that we are going to discuss and work with quite shortly, because what we have encountered several times, and I think that you also have encountered this if you have tried to use the business model canvas, and these logics when entering the circular economy, is that it doesn't really map. Instead of business strategy, when we enter these kind of resource loops, we need some kind of strategy for all stakeholders, because we might be dependent on the company upstream or downstream for our business to actually incur. We also need some kind of value chain organization for this. And who's to do that? Are we going to go with some kind of big company taking the stewardship role, pointing out the road, or should we try to do this together? What is basically the strategy? And who do we make several companies follow that strategy? And often we fall back on, is this actually sustainable? A lot of LCAs has been done now in many different ways to see that if we change this part in this company, or if we use this technology, will it actually turn out in total to be more sustainable than the alternative? It is not always so, one would say, and especially in the circular economy, it might be that we just push effects somewhere else in the chain. So therefore, these are the three pillars that we work with when we work with companies. Like, how do you create this through some kind of common sense? Just to bring up, there are basically 4 strategies for circular business model networks, or whatever you would call them. Dematerialize resource flows, very common. You sell services instead of goods. You can close resource flows, taking waste to wealth, using one company's output in the waste department to create your own products. Intensify resource flows was quite popular in Sweden, at least a couple of years ago. It hasn't really spun out to be the great sustainability carrier that we hoped for, but basically it's, if you have existing goods, it's better to use them constantly than to keep them on a shelf and produce more. And slow resource flow, increase lifespan of existing goods. And these are usually the things we talk about when we talk about circular strategies now, not business models. But they're not really that, I mean, secure peculiar for circular economy. Spotify, Netflix, Kindle, they have all dematerialized the resource flows of entertainment. Car leasing has been there a lot more time, as long as cars have existed, basically. Closing resource flows, we also have that before the circular economy. Intensifying resource flows have been some of the major spin-outs or software startups from California lately, Airbnb, but also in the form of ghost breweries in UK, stuff like that, where you actually use stuff more to get resources. And slowing, eBay, whatever version of that you have in your country, has been there far more longer than we have talked about circular economy for completely different reasons. So these are not kind of exclusive to sustainability companies or circular economy companies. But it's also interesting to see that when we see companies entering these strategies of networks, we often fall back to that the design of products is extremely important. Because if you have a product that is not designed to be dematerialized, you still need to service it as much as you did before, which means that, well, the actual sustainability winning from that, and also the financial winnings, are lessened by that, for example. Now I'm interested in hearing what circular economy means to you and your company. I think that we're going to do the same thing again, that you get to talk 2 by 2, and then we can talk a little bit in this room. So I will try to split you up into new groups. 2 by 2, let's see here. And if you got the same person, well, then we can talk. And I'm gonna drop the link in the chat before I send you off on your way. So what does the circular economy mean to you and your company right now? See you in 5 minutes.
Hello, Beck.
Hi, Hamza. It seems that Kalle wants us to work even more together than we already do. So the question was, what does it mean to me, circular economy? Constant frustration. Okay, I'm trying to trying to work out a proposal for Ivan problem statement because on the model he showed his model, because I would like to see it at a intercompany level. I want it less complex, but I want to see. That's why I'm waiting for what Kalle has to show us here. I'd like to see it with an attempt at more than one company layer, sort of.
Yeah, I think
in the
probably
model.
like he's just like warming up, building like the basis to approach that.
Perfect.
Mm.
Yeah, so constant frustration because we have zero system level stuff anywhere.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, I think like many companies just like do downstream recycling stuff, but don't think it through like holistically. And I mean, I kind of understand because it's complicated, and even like circular economy is in itself not the thing, but more like you need to have this cradle to cradle approach where you are not only minimizing waste, but eliminating waste.
Eliminating.
Yeah. That's like what the C2C approach is, like from Braungart and so on. And I never seen it, to be honest. I think like it's an ideal thingy. Well, there are some companies who do it, but they have more like simple, very simple products. But in more complex products, I think it's not easy. But probably like Fairphone is one of the Fairphone, Philips. Probably Fairphone is like one of the advanced ones. Yeah. You know Fairphone?
Absolutely, over 10 years. And I tried 10 years back or something like that, at least if not more, to get them to operate in Canada. I said, please, come on, we can do everything you want. Because as I said, I was so frustrated, the term was not known here, nothing happening. And I thought, well, then I bring the best we can here just to see. And I said, well, come on, it's such a big market next to us, you know. So,
Yeah.
but you know, there was not even the term wasn't even existing here. So as I said, so I'm just putting this in here.
I don't know, like how is
So
I
what
think
I have
Canada will be
eliminated.
like it will be like open for it. I mean, like for a sustainable phone, I think it's a good market actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still don't have more than that, right? We're still with the same examples with everything. So I put eliminating waste, cradle to cradle is an ideal, does exist not for complex, I said problems, my God, products is what I want to say. Goodness me. Okay, now it is
Okay,
asking
now we
me
have
to
to
leave.
write. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying, it doesn't let me write products.
Well, circular economy tries to keep energy and materials in cycle at the best quality for as long as possible.
So here's what I said. Well, I added keep energy materials and cycles at best quality possible. Fairphone and Philips seem to have the only good examples. Yeah.
Yeah, for like complex products, I think. Yeah.
So, welcome back. Service focused.
Oh.
Definitely. Cycling, best quality and as long as possible. That's good. Service opportunities to make revenue. Definitely. Usability, business materials. Eliminating waste. Sound redundant as a consultant. Definitely. Second that. Why do you love teaching sustainability? Well, I can feel the same. If I didn't have to teach this, I would be very, very happy. But as long as we are in the state we are, we still need it. Interesting. And same thing about circular economy, I think, applies to what we said about business models, that it actually varies a lot from company to company. What we see is the company's role in the circular economy, but also how we interpret it, what the circular economy is. And the same thing when we look at startups, which I mostly work with, we see that. It's not me, no. So seldom today you actually hear a phone signal. Usually it's on mute and you just hear this. No, it goes. I'm gonna not engage you in conversation right now, but show you what we are doing and how we are using this. And then we have half an hour to discuss after that. And you don't have to agree with me if I said something about the circular economy or business models, but I wanted to explain like where do we come from when we enter this space of circular business modeling. And we like models, and I like models because we usually work with companies that are designing new business models using stuff. And often, as someone said here, they have technology, but they need some kind of way out to the customers. And then they use business modeling as the way to experiment. What we've done is basically to cut the business model canvas in pieces. And the reason why we're using the business model canvas is that everywhere we went before we started doing this, everyone, if they used any kind of tool, it was the business model canvas or some of their own design. So we cut the canvas in pieces, and I will show you what that also entails when you actually start innovating with it. Instead of having a value proposition in the large middle box, we put the proposed solution. Key resources, key activities, just the same as the regular business model canvas. But then we map out several tiers of customers and partners. And important here is not how many tiers, but what's relevant for the actual solution that you're looking at. It might be 3 tiers, downstream, upstream, or how it is. Problem with partners is also that it could be not only in tiers, but also, what do you call that? Not vertical, but horizontally, vertically expanded. We also put some new parts on all these pieces, external drivers for sustainability and possible means of influence on the focal company then. So the pieces actually look like this. You have a customer segment. Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. Let's go back to that one. We put value propositions on all the relevant parties. I got lost in English, so I forgot about that. Which means that these are the value propositions that the focal firm offers this tier or other customer segment or partner. And it's important that these vary a lot. Although it's the same company, it's the same solution, the value propositions for the different companies and partners often vary a lot when you kind of dive into it. And usually it has to do with external drivers. if they vary much, or internal drivers. External drivers can be stuff like politics, laws, market trends, whatever you say. Internal drivers are, of course, if what turns the company into sustainability question. We have a new box, because what I will show later on also, often when you come into the circular economy, you build long-lasting relationships, either with partners or with customers. And how do you do that then? Well, first of all, you need some kind of structure and level of formal commitment between the two parties, and you need some kind of idea about what kind of values are exchanged. And if you have short-term relationships, we still use these customer relationships and channels because they are valid, but more for a mass market. And if you have long-term, use the engagement exchange box. So I'm going to explain this through using Bocken's 6 business model archetypes. These are not examples from them. These are not actually business model, but concise flora of archetypes that they have positioned out in the circular economy. And the important part here is that, if we try to map this with the business model canvas, we will be at fault because these are not similar to one another. Classic long life model, I won't dive into this one or the next because it's basically quite simple. You can have a cupboard from the 19th century, or you could have one of these newly made polyplanks from the southern Sweden. The idea behind this is that it's supposed to be there for a very long time. The hybrid model, the Fairphone, or the Swedish company Tresea, which makes office furniture, it's basically the same thing, but if you know that you have wear out parts in your solution, you can make these exchangeable. This is a quite simple linear business model, so I won't dive into these two, but they're still there according to Bocken. Access model, the service industry that we were mentioning before. Leasing of products instead of selling. For it to actually work very well for sustainability, the product needs to be designed for durability and minimal repairs. Otherwise, it doesn't really help. But the idea behind this is that instead of the customer buying a printer and then spending money on consumables and repairs, stuff like that, if the ownership is held by the company selling it or providing it, they will minimize it. They will minimize the need for repairs, consumables, and stuff like that. Hopefully it happens. The example I was going to pull comes from a new kind of thing. Thanks to the EU Battery Directive, we are right now working with a couple of companies what they are supposed to do with their return batteries. I can't name the companies because they are not on the market yet, but we're working with them to set up good cases. And now we're talking quite large batteries from, not the automotive industry, but that large and larger. So what do? Well, they put these out on the market as battery storages because they're still good to use for that. I haven't listed the suppliers, but when we look into a business model puzzle for these companies, this doesn't really apply. I mean, these people end up in long-term relationships, long-term contracts with their customer, and they also need constant feedback from them. So if you map it like this, then okay, leasing agreements, here's a customer, they want the battery storage. For some reason, they lease it from this company during several years usually. And when we did the digging in this one was that, well, the actual thing that the company is requesting, it's not a battery, it's access to energy. And what has become tricky, at least for some customer segments, for these companies, that they still have to control the batteries somehow. And for certain players to let someone else enter their internet environment or network environment to control a thing sitting in their specific facilities can be quite tricky. So this is one way of how a different version of the business model can help. And also the interesting thing is that for these customer segments that we have mapped, a couple of them now right now, there's no environmental question among the companies. The actual energy, the battery users, they just want access to energy. Might be because they have moved into more reliable sources, or more reusable sources for energy, which make them also fluctuating. But the access to energy is the key. Performance models, not very common, but we have one company in Sweden selling a defined function at the product. Toyota Material Handling, one of Europe's largest manufacturers of forklifts, they also do warehouse as a service, which means that you have a warehouse, your products are coming and going in it, and Toyota is, thanks to another partner, then staffing and putting forklifts and everything that's supposed to move this stuff around. So you don't have to care about that as a customer. When yet again, we just don't care about the suppliers, it's a lot of them. But when we focus on a business model when it comes to this customer segment, yet again, this doesn't really apply. There's an engagement, there's a tier 1 customer, and here's a leasing agreement over several years, again, because you're taking over operations in their warehouse facility. What does the customer get? Well, peace of mind has usually been the one thing coming back to us. Yeah, we don't want to care about this. We don't want to man it. We don't want to staff it. We don't want to buy the equipment. We just want a warehouse giving us the stuff that we need. But what Toyota needs is extreme access to data, multiple data points, point of sales data, downstream warehouse data. How are the stocks all the way down to the final customers, which also means that the tier 2 customers that weren't even in the discussion when we set this up, they become a source of data. Suddenly, the agreements between the tier 1 and the tier 2 customer needs to change to be able to share the data, which the tier 1 customer already had, but to be able to share that data with Toyota managing their warehouse became an issue. Encouraged efficiency is one of the ones, and here are 2 examples. Like how can you make money out of telling people not to buy stuff? We have 2 Swedish examples here. Swinga, which is an app for sharing facilities between households. The idea is that the whole block or your whole house enters the same app, some kind of very localized Facebook where you can borrow stuff from each other. They make money out of advertising, but the interesting part is this little warehouse here in Malmö, which is basically, or not warehouse, workshop, I mean. It's workshop as a service for people to come in there and repair whatever they want to repair. Jeans, a TV. They have huge facilities and they have people working there helping people to repair stuff. And this is interesting because when we did the business model puzzle with this company, well, of course, the customer relationship and channels are valid because they try to reach out to the whole city of Malmö coming to them. But their partner is the municipality. They are actually housed in the cellar of a house which the municipality owns. And the municipality also pays a little bit for the electricity, stuff like that, to keep going here. And the big problem for this company, which is a company that runs this, was how to get a long-term commitment from the municipality, especially running more than 4 years, which means running over the cycles of politicians. And then they had to think about like what are the benefits reaped actually by these partners when they get physical facilities, but what are the benefits for the municipality and what are the drivers, the sustainability drivers for this, which actually was more about the social sustainability than the environmental sustainability in the end, they figured out. It's also a way of doing this also helps you asking the questions that actually matters for the people that matters to your business. And Is this the most important part? Was also a question that they are still, I think, digging in. Why do people come? Is it because they are poor and can't afford to buy new stuff? Or is it because they want to repair stuff out of some kind of sustainability idea? Or why do they do it? They still don't really know. 2 cases of an industrial symbiosis, one quite simple. This is a Dutch company. I don't know if you've seen it, Permafungi. They sell mushroom farming, where you buy one of these little jugs, you pour water into it, and then you get mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms, I think, mostly. But they use coffee grind as a resource. And then they have 2-3 large coffee shop chains, not coffee shops in Dutch, you can't say that. What do you call them? Barista shops, espresso house, stuff like that, that supplies them with coffee grinds. And then when my colleagues did this mapping, it was quite interesting to see that they had not specified their relationship with these coffee chains. And they got coffee grind, no problem, but they didn't know for how long or why. And they also didn't know really why did the coffee chains agree to this? Was it just because they didn't have to care about taking care of it in some other way? Or was it some kind of sustainability thing? They didn't know. They were quite happy just to get the stuff. And then they started digging into this and realizing that, well, the CSRD was basically the reason to buy the coffee. And also that they made it was quite beneficial for them to actually give this coffee away, which was nice. Okay, now this one came again. Now I have a little bit more tricky part, because I mean, all this has been just one-to-one business settings and could have been sufficiently done basically with a business model canvas with some alterations. But I want to give you one more huge example of when this can matter, and then we can discuss the whole thing. And this is a company called Warm from southern Sweden. Yes, bye, Ali. Thank you. This is a sustainability framed company setting up different kind of things. And one thing that they set up in the northern Sweden was a facility for indoor farming. The whole thing actually spawned from the paper mill having residual heat from their operations, which they didn't know what to do with. So Warm set up a facility for indoor farming using this residual heat to be able to strike deals with tomato farmers. And the reason why they focused on tomatoes was that ICA, one of the largest food chains in Sweden, actually had they were searching for alternatives to Spanish tomatoes. And Warren was orchestrating all this also with a lot of public money from the region and municipality that they were operating in. Then they started a company around this facility. And this is what they do, basically, Warm. But the interesting part here is that if you look at this from a business model perspective, this facility running, now there's a lot of text on this one, which you can read more thoroughly, but the whole chain with the paper mill, the engagement, the exchange that they have, the tomato farmers, which also is a quite complex engagement that they have, and then ICA, which basically drives the whole thing through their demand of tomatoes. And then you have some customer far, far away, the end customer with trends of sustainability and wanting locally farmed tomatoes. This become quite complicated to map. And the big thing that we did when we were mapping this with Warm was that before they had set this whole thing up, the paper mill was quite glad just to give away this heat. But as they were forming some kind of business agreement with ICA, the paper mill started to wanting to have money for the residual heat because suddenly it had a value. So we started mapping what is the actual revenue stream coming from this? And now we're getting into like the whole network idea that, okay, now we have mapped all this, but how do we actually make it sustainable? And we have a certain amount of money flowing into this system. We have tomato farmers, we have the actual facility, and we have the paper mill. And what was decided then was that, well, let's look at where are the largest costs? What kind of costs do we need to cover? And the tomato farmers had the H and high, M middle, and L low, the highest costs, which also meant that, well, everyone agreed on that, then they should have more revenues coming into them, of course. And then you had the middle and low. And that's how they distributed this very precise money coming. And this was quite a simple setup to discuss financial distribution, because, I mean, there was basically one source of financial means coming into the system. But in the end, this is basically what we propose, that cut down the business model canvas to help setting up ideas about these kind of circular business models. And now I don't have anything more to say. I pulled over. I said I was going to aim for 1 hour, and maybe I stuck it a little bit, 7 minutes over. But I think I will leave this one here just for an example. And then I would love to hear your comments, ideas, things like that. I think we are not that many people in the room that we should be able to stick to it. And if you want to say something and someone else is talking a lot, just raise your hand and we'll just pick you out in order. Thank you for letting me come here, and I hope it was interesting for most of you.
Thank you very much, Kalle. It was definitely very interesting, and I also love that you started with some foundations on or introduction to business modeling and what it means and what it does. And so, yeah, I'm coming from like more engineering perspective, so whenever I hear this introduction, it helps.
That's good.
Yeah, I think same here. I think I was thinking, because engineering background, you think about revenue and many things, but I think the example is a really good example as well. So it can be applied in a different way to our projects, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 4 strategies and the 6 archetypes, finding a way to have, if you like, a concise description of those. I think when thinking about new concepts, it's a good way of sort of challenging ourselves. To say from the class, I guess the default is the classic long life. I want to build something to exist for the whole life cycle, blah, blah, blah. But even thinking, so I'm from defense industry, usually big things, but I think having those archetypes to help prompt thought about different ways of solving the problem could be really, really useful.
Interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, we can jump into questions. Does anyone have a question?
Sure, I'll throw something out there. Great presentation, Karl. Thanks so much. I
Thank you.
really enjoyed Tusen talk. So usually there are winners and losers when you change the business models and you change, the ecosystems and that sort of thing. And how do you sort of, I mean, innovation usually involves change and usually involves winners and losers, and the losers tend to hold on as tightly as they can. What are some of the situations that you've encountered with that, and how have you sort of addressed it?
That's a really good thing. Actually, we are in the middle of writing an article about that because if you live in the academic world, it doesn't really seem that competition is a thing when you talk about circularity and sustainability. And me coming from the business arena, I have a hard time about that, because I think it's very hard to find any kind of discussion about this on the academic level. On the other hand, when you go to companies, usually with the companies that I work with being mainly Swedish or Swedish based, high technological, often some kind of premium product. What they usually do, and what we have been doing with Toyota now for 10 years here at the university, is helping them to put up a product as a service initiative. But what we also have, without actually thinking about it, done is a perfect example, I think, of how the circular economy competes. Because what Toyota does, Toyota has quite high-end forklifts, I would say. I don't know the forklift market, but I think that they're quite high-end. And when they put up forklifts, 80% of their new production goes as product as a service. And what they do is they aim for the highest customer segment for the first loop. 2, 3, maximum 4 years, their trucks are out there performing for the really heavy, the really, like, I don't know how a competitive warehouse is done, but I mean, where you need the latest of forklifts to be able to do the operations. Then they pull them back, they refurbish them, they repair them. Well, repairs are done, of course, all over the time, but they refurbish them, and then they put them out to a secondary customer group. And these two were primarily the people they were selling trucks to before, or forklifts. Because then they had different kind of segmentations on their product line, selling different advancements of forklifts. So basically, they're covering the same. But what happens in the third loop is that then they shift away from the product as a service thing, and they refurbish the forklifts, and then they sell them. And then it's a tertial customer group, the people who just need a forklift, not something fancy pants. I mean, the forklift is basically 10 years old suddenly. But what they do is that they compete with people, other companies that produces low margin forklifts. And we're trying to calculate on that, because if they succeed in this, will they outcompete less sustainable alternatives on the market? Which means that if you look at the systems perspective, will they actually save more than they already do by circling the same product 3 times through a market? And that's an interesting part, I think. And a lot of the companies that I work with, Danish and Swedish, they all are in this segment of a little bit more quality focused than the competitors. And they try to compete, but also Bosch, when they try to rent out tools to consumers rather than sell them. Also, they don't compete with their original customers buying them. They compete with low price tools that you buy in the supermarket. I think that we could be talking more about this in the circular economy, that this is actually a double benefit we have. If we manage this, we will outcompete unsustainable goods and cheap stuff.
Thank you, Karl.
Long answer, but this is top of my mind right now.
I have a question, but I don't know whether it's going to be relevant to this area or not. The circular economy model, how does it help for go, no-go situation?
How do you mean with a go, no-go situation?
Sometimes you come to the model, everything is successful, the business model. At the end, the financial directors, they come with a situation whether it can be go means you can start to work on production, or no go, stop. Even you spend a year or 2 years, you have a business model. You always have when you create a business model, you always have a failure mode analysis and the mitigation plans. Everything is there. But still, we always be very focused on what he's going to say. Then he decide. I don't know what type of model they normally use. So do you have any special model, business model for those kind of situations?
I don't know exactly if I captured this, but I mean, when I work with companies and when I've been working in industry, I think that the business model work in the beginning, or at least we wanted to be to be that. But the first thing you start with is basically drawing a crude business model and engaging with customers, talking to them, trying to realize both what kind of value is the customer actually wanting, and can we create that and deliver that, and in what kind of premises, like how do they want it, what are they able to buy it for, what are substitutes out there. So I think that's how I've been using like business model tools for my work life, like using them as first iteration, second iteration, and then it sort of gets more complex. And of course, you need some kind of proof of concept, proof of customer, something like that, and then you start building the technology. But before you start building something, you try to understand that the customer is actually online and wants to have what you are selling in the way that you are selling. Is that what you're talking about, or?
Yeah, I think most of the situation in the engineering companies is always like sometimes failed. So how do you mitigate the business plan? So those kind of business plans, I hardly see it. So the decision is already made. They say, yes, business phase like this. You deliver something like a little bit of discrepancy, no go, which means all stopped. So I think I was wondering, is there any business model failure mitigation business model, how you cope with that?
No, I don't think I have a good answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, sorry.
Don't worry. Thank you so much. I think there are two hands. I'm going to be.
Anne, I think you're first.
Yeah, I have a question. Didn't the current business models think about what happens after they sell their products? So there is some kind of waste at the moment, always. But if my responsibility ends when I sell it, so then it's not in my mind anymore. So if now I think what John Wayne meant maybe if there also the end of life is a responsibility of the seller. So to say you can sell it, but you have to say what happens after. So maybe if there is garbage, you're responsible. It's your costs. So then I think some business model will change, or is not good anymore. So because now it's if it's circular, of course you have to think about. But I think at the moment still if it's gone, it's gone. Someone else has to think about it. Maybe it's gone in the oceans or so, but it's someone else has the costs to keep to reduce recycle the garbage or something like that, or we have to live with climate change or so on. So yeah, if the garbage is part of the business model, the responsibility to care about it, will that change a lot of business models? If that may be the future to change thinking?
Definitely. And I mean, I think that the struggle that we all have when we try on circular business models is that we do it in a linear economy. Because that's the usual thing that at least I run into every time when you have a good circular business model, that it's too expensive. Yeah, but it's expensive because, as you say, Anne, usually I don't have to care about the waste. I sell stuff and then it's gone. And that's what I like with the EU battery directive, that it says that, well, even if you sell it, you still have to care about what happens when in end of life. And that's why we are working with a couple of companies now that are like Toyota Material Handling, that actually gets batteries back from their huge trucks. They are all battery driven, basically. There are some diesel ones left. But from these forklifts, there's a lot of batteries coming back when they reach end of life. And there are going to be even more. And then either you have to change how you do batteries and how you do forklifts, which Toyota has done by starting to do product as a service instead, or you have to come up with a secondary life idea about the batteries. And I think it's perfect. I mean, that's the way I would like the whole. I mean, how do you change the fashion industry? Well, you make the fashion companies responsible for textile waste. It would be perfect. I mean, Jesus, we would have sustainable clothing in a blink of an eye if that happened. Because everyone would just return their worn out jeans to Levi's, and then you can imagine. That would be my perfect world. But I also think that a lot of companies right now, not maybe a lot, I'm exaggerating because I'm happy because I found a few. We are right now working with a couple of companies that have realized that, we have a lot of products out there, and we know what they are made of. And especially one company we're working with, their products are quite large. They are used for 5 to 10 years, and then they need repairs, and then sometimes they need to be exchanged. Well, quite often after 10 years, sometimes after 5 years. But these contain both aluminium, stainless steel, and casted iron. And they realized that, today, people do all these, other companies earn money from taking care of our products. So they reached out to their customers and through their distributors networks and said that, we would like to could we retake some of these? And they had an internal goal of retaking 100 of these units to see if they could do something with them. So now they have started some kind of circular idea that they retake or rebuy these used products from their customers to use as inflow in their own production. To take these, especially aluminium and steel, but sometimes also casted iron, and reuse them because it's cheaper for them than actually taking virgin materials. And also it puts them in better light when it comes to certain customer groups. So, I mean, that's not backing into the circular economy, I would say. It's more like realizing that, okay, what we have here is value. We could use that because we know what's out there. John?
Yeah, do you see any motion with governments following the footsteps of China, where in China, if you produce batteries, you have to recycle them, and there's a certain level you have to recycle, like 90% lithium, 98% manganese, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not a moneymaker, but they have to take on that liability because it's the law. Do you see any motion in any other products in the EU or Sweden or anywhere else that's moving in that direction?
The battery directive from EU is basically that. It doesn't really specify, I don't know the details, it doesn't specify how you're supposed to deal with it. But if you sell batteries on the market, you are responsible. If the customer comes back to you with the battery, you have to accept it. And then suddenly you're responsible for everything that happens with that battery afterwards, which is a nice twist on the whole thing. But I think we could be even harsher, and especially for everything that we know that we put out there, and especially business to business relationships where we talk a lot of quantities. So that's one, but that's also the only example that I had in the battery directive.
I mean, it's incredible that the Chinese are doing this, considering they're also huge producers of lithium. So they're enforcing the recyclability of a material that they're actually a producer of. But it's an authoritarian government, and so they're able to do that. And I'm wondering, what will it take for us to do things of that nature in non-authoritarian governance?
Definitely. I mean, it takes a lot of guts as a politician.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
there has to be an enforcement mechanism as well, doesn't there? Otherwise, it's just hollow words. And that's where being an authoritarian government comes in easier, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Well, actually, like I've been to the Cradle to Cradle conference last year, or this year was that, and I think it was very interesting because, like, for example, in the building sector, I think they are also like pretty advanced in these topics. They see a building as a bank of resources. So you are kind of lending resources to the customers who are building the buildings, and you want them to give it back when they finish with it. And to put this thing into a contract or something like this, like more complicated thing. So it's not companies who are waiting for governments to make policies, but like companies who are seeing that there is a value, or that the resources are actually like kind of bank resources when you are selling a product or something like that, and you want it to be back so that you can use it again.
Definitely. And I think that's just a short notice, Anna, then we're going to let you in. I think that that's the only good thing that has come out of any kind of crisis that are going on right now, like the attack on Ukraine or everything that's going on, is that companies realize that resources are not, it's not easy to get resources all the time. And we have a lot of resources already here in Spin. Why not use that? That's, and then we're back to the circular economy. Anne?
Yeah, the right of repair and also the building sector, that's part of a bigger part of the EU Green New Deal, I think. I have to look it up. I don't know. And also different sectors belong to it. The buildings, the electronic sector, the textiles, and I think in the Circular EU Act, or I don't know the exact name. So for the future, I hope they do it. At the moment, it's kind of, yeah, the world changed also the EU, tried that in the future, every sector has to use parts of recycled materials. And I think the easiest one maybe is the building sector. And because it's new, the battery sector is kind of a test run. I think it's because everything is new, it's also maybe easier to create a passport for the ingredients. So yeah, but yeah, for the buildings, they in the future, and also for old buildings, they try to see that as a material, yeah, as a material compound or so which they can use in the future. And they're also at least in Germany, but I think in other parts of Europe also which can create money from it. Older buildings have a lot of old wood, very good wood, and old stones. So it's kind of a value there for the future, and also maybe copper. So that's already in place, and also in Berlin there are buildings who completely built from recycled materials. So that's a good vision. But you have to see how it goes for the future and how it becomes a process for all. Yeah.
Short notice on that one. We have right now, since I'm working mostly with how large corporations and startups are working together, we see more and more of these startups that are popping up trying to do one of these loops with focus on a certain company, which is some kind of strange venture capital driven exchange between a company who knows exactly where the goods are, or more or less exactly. It could be textile, it could be casted iron or aluminium or whatever they have put out on the market, but they know their customers, and startups who say that, well, if we could get access to that customer base, we could recycle the thing that you're talking about due to our new fantastic technology, and we could sell the goods back to you or to someone else. And we're seeing this both in plastics and aluminium right now, with a couple of young startups that are starting to try to get this to work. And I think it's quite interesting, because suddenly the thing that happens is that the large company needs to understand that people are making money out of all these loops for them. And my absolute my hopeful one is not out on the market yet, but they are trying to repurpose, like taking stuff from one company which they have put out in the market, if they can get it back, trying to repurpose that specific compound for a completely new sector. And that's also very interesting movement, like moving resources without degrading them too much. We're not talking about recycling here, we're talking about repurposing or remanufacturing, basically. Iris.
Sorry, yes, this is Kai Kalle. Sorry, I had problems with
Oh,
my
sorry.
laptop.
It's Kai.
That's okay. That's okay.
Just
I'm
reading
in
and
the way.
talking.
And I'm traveling as well. So thank you for starters. This was absolutely fascinating. I really, really love how you put us through all this and taught us valuable stuff. But I'm wondering, because in my naive mind, about the puzzle-based approach, I would like to check my understanding, I guess, for starters, and secondly, ask, because I think my hope somewhere was that this puzzle-based approach where you cut the canvas up would also allow for some kind of adaptive business modeling, sort of future-looking or flexibility, something like that. A completely naive question, I guess, which this brought up in my mind, number one. And number two, so if I understand you cutting up the canvas right, it allows you to really sort of get at the circular value chain. Would that be correct? Or what is the essential value you create by doing so?
I would say that the value we create, if I start with the last question, is that these business model, I mean, the business model is still a little cut of the larger actor or system map that you create. And for a large company, basically, I mean, you have a business model for each product, and and especially for each remanufactured product, it goes into some kind of new business model, having new partners, new stuff like that, and to be able to map different tiers of both partners and customers, I think it's the best value, and to realize that the value proposition is different also between all these partners. But to address your first question there, my suggestion and how I work with business model, as I said, is that this is basically the first thing you do, and hopefully through. And I like the business model canvas because of it, because it makes you ask the interesting questions. You have to think about all parts, like how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one piece at a time. And here you get the pieces. And I think that by adding a little bit more sustainability focused questions to the business model puzzle, we make people question the right things before they even start collaborating or doing stuff. And that's how we use it with the startups that I'm working with right now. Like, you have to understand the company and the drivers they have and the value you can create for them, both upstream and downstream, to be able to have a business. And the values might differ very much from one another, depending on which sector you are in. So that's what I hope that this can lead to, more creative business modeling.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. And when you do the collaborative business modeling, so I think the example, the most prominent one, is this industrial symbiosis you showed. And I'm trying to understand, was he ever, because it sort of seems that a lot of it sort of comes through the practice, and but is there a way to really get those or various numbers of companies convene them to really start from scratch a form of collaborative business modeling or industrial symbiosis in that sense? Did you ever come across anything like that, given especially that right now with the what's going on in the biotech sector, we recreate or try to really create a lot of new industrial symbiosis in close to biorefineries, but new type, or biofoundries, sorry, new types. And there's a lot going in there. Just I'm throwing this out at you.
I think that the tricky part about the business model as it is constructed is that it varies a lot. I mean, if you look at this one, it's the focal company is Warm. And they have this quite large chain of companies that they need to put together to be able to have a business model. But if you would do the same thing for the tomato farmer, they would have a complex relation with Warm, and then they would sell tomatoes to ICA. Quite straightforward. They don't even have to think about the larger picture. Well, they could if they really want to have like understand why they are able to do this, but they don't have to. They don't have any kind of initiative with the paper mill or the end customer. So it varies a lot, but I think that especially when we have tried to set this up, actually we did one in the construction sector. We had an interesting workshop. It took way too long time to get started, but what we did was that we gathered people from architects, construction companies, all kinds of consultants, also some kind of manufacturers of windows and tiles and stuff like that. And the actual, I don't know what it's called in English, but the company actually ordering the building to be constructed. Byggherre, we say in Swedish. The future owner of the building. We all put all of them in one room, and then we presented a new technology from a startup to all of them and saying like how this is supposed to be inserted somewhere in this line. Where should it be inserted and who should be responsible for this? And that way we could map this kind of business model over the whole chain with all the people there at the moment, saying like giving their individual response to what's in it for us, what's the value for us giving this new technology. That was extremely swift and very, very fruitful, but also took a long time to get it set up. And the reason that we were able to do this was because we had another large program about sustainable construction going in the municipality. So we had people that we could pull. Hansa.
Yeah, I have a question on this. So, for this collaborative business model, so do you always get the different parties to come together and make this business model?
The ones that I have been part of constructing has usually been bilateral. Then, of course, encompassing more people in the value chain or more companies in the value chain. But the main collaborative part has been between a startup and a large incumbent company, which means that, of course, they have set it up together, each with their respective idea of their own business model. That's how I have been doing it.
Okay.
Apart from this example, then when everyone was in the room, because that's usually the problem. It's very hard to put the people in the room. It's easier to, the innovator can run around and interview people and talk to them, trying to get them on board.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting. I think there was also another question in the chat. Yeah, there was the question, did you publish this work, the one on facilitating workshop with different stakeholders from construction?
Let's see. I know that we have that collaborative thing somewhere. Circular matchmaking, we called it, and we didn't write an article, but we wrote a white paper on it, which we have here. And Ignite is an organization which I work a lot with. It's a matchmaking organization between startups and large companies. So that's the ignitesweden.org website.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I very find your approach like very interesting. I mean, like also like in biological system, like this is kind of how it works. Like for example, when a leaf will fall down from the tree, there are, I forgot the names of these types of biological systems that work on the decomposition of this leaf and make out nutrients out of them for their own cycles.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's missing in here is like, or what I'm kind of, what's kind of worrying is that we might end up in a down cycling of the materials, that we lose the quality. Or for example, as you mentioned, like the startups is like that the aluminium can be reused and so on, which will be kind of recycling. But what if we can reuse, keep the quality of the components and reuse it? We will have like more benefits from it actually than instead of that like recycling it or repurposing it for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And also like the regenerative part is kind of missing in this kind of thing. So Of course, if we just like go with downcycling at some point and we are not putting back or regenerating back the virgin materials, we will have a problem at some point. The stock that we have will be like empty, kind of.
Definitely. And I mean, especially, I think it's especially true regarding stuff like plastic and things we don't want even to put in circulation or energy to move to renewables instead of depletables is key. Well, that's actually first key, and then we can look at the other parts of the circular economy also.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I think we will see new ecosystem, especially I think also like the repurpose is also one of the most interesting ones because it connects an industry or with another one. So you have like some ways of one industry that just like go to another ecosystem and another product. And this is like where it resembles the nature, where you have so many ecosystems all interconnected with each other, which we don't have today in our economy. So it's like the supply chain of car industry is the supply chain of the car industry. It's not connected to other ones. But with this repurpose, we will see like more connection to other industries. Kai is the
It's all
specialist
dependent
on these topics.
modular design.
Not necessarily. Yeah, but that's exactly what I wanted to get at. But through the biological, or what I think what they call it now is the chemical upcycling. I'm wondering whether some of those startups in the plastics you were talking about are into that. I don't know. I'm just trying to throw it out. The question I have with respect to that was what I was trying to get at was the new sort of industrial tissue or fabric which needs to be created or is creating itself right now, for instance, around biofoundries is the example, and that's one from the Biomimicry 3.8 organization, where they transformed mixed textile fibers through, in inverted commas, chemical upcycling or recycling from cellulose into glucose with 2 transformations, etc., which then needs a lot of imagination to, let's say, recreate. It's a virgin material which needs reuses or novel uses in a different sector. Where and how do we start activating the imagination? It needs to sort of come up with more, I guess, symbiosis across sectors in these areas. That's sort of my questions there. And how would you go about it? Is it still something you can address with the tools you've presented, or what would be your thinking there, Karl?
Interesting question. One thing that it's quite new to me, because I mean we have in the Nordics we have a lot of public procurement. I don't know how it is in your countries, but like as soon as the government wants to buy something, you have public procurement. And in Sweden and Denmark at least, and also Norway, there's a scoring table for sustainability assessments. And a couple of the companies that I like, incumbent large companies that I've been working with, have realized that if they remanufacture stuff, they can sell it for the same price or higher in large quantities to public procurement, and they win them because they score so high on the sustainability questions. So they outcompete their competition. So this has been an interesting spin, and we're trying to work this out now with a couple of other companies to see that, okay, can this be a way to go? Because then it's also, it could be a forwarding point for politicians and for people who are actually in charge of the public procurement to say that can we drive industries in the right direction by focusing even more on the sustainability questions when it comes to public procurement. And that's the only thing that gets into my mind, Kai, when you ask about this. But well, are there stuff that public organizations buy that we could make from these recycled fibers? I'm thinking healthcare uses a lot of stuff, stuff like that. Because then we could actually sell a lot, because the quantity is usually huge when you enter these. And we could use both politicians and an actual demand to fill or to use this kind of new recycled things. Hamza?
Yeah, sorry. I think we already like took a lot of time, but I have like one question, like the one actually that you asked last time, and I find it very interesting. I mean, I have maybe a point of view on it, but I would really like to just like discuss it maybe in this round. So your question was, what if you have like a manufacturing industry and you are just like having linear economy, then you decide to become sustainable and then reusing the products. So what's going to happen to all this supply chain that's used to support your manufacturing? And I think it's interesting because, of course, it disrupts kind of their business somehow, but I think somehow they also have to change and adapt to the situation. And some examples were also like in the COVID situation where many factories had to close because the supply chain was not functioning anymore, but then they changed their factory and they started to produce, for example, the masks that we were wearing in the COVID pandemic. And there are also like some concepts for manufacturing as a service or recycling as a service, where these kind of companies, they can use a factory for several products or services. So I think that will be my response on this question. I don't know if you have maybe some other solutions on that.
But I think that overall, the circular economy, like the reuse of resources, especially when it comes to industry and manufactured products that needs to be circulated, creates a lot of jobs locally. In competition, of course, to the international supply chains that deliver the virgin stuff to the company, especially when you talk about the Nordics or the EU, because we don't have that kind of production here, usually. But if we would start to recycle wood in some way, and the Swedish big forestry industry suddenly didn't sell as much wood, I mean, of course, we would have a problem. Or recycle steel, which we produce a lot of here in Sweden, then, of course, that would affect the virgin input into the market with interesting effects, maybe. But I think that locally, around the companies and the customer bases that actually put the products into some kind of market, the circular economy provides with more opportunities for work. That's my take. Cool. Now I need to run. I'm so happy that you all had so many questions and discussion. As you see, I really love the subject, and I would love to hear more about your each and every one of your companies also, and how you attack this. But unfortunately, we don't have infinite amounts of time.
Yeah. I also just want to do the closing. Big thank you to the presentation and to taking up our questions and everything. I think we definitely will be bumping into each other again, or we will come up to you when we have like some questions as well. I think I already like presented what we do in our working group. And I hope that our collaboration will not stop here, but will be like the start of it.
And I know that I'm a bad marketer. I should have my LinkedIn, but you can always find. I have a very singular last name, so it's quite easy to find on LinkedIn. Please add me there. I love following companies that do stuff around circularity and sustainability in any kind of way. Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Thank you
too.
Thanks very much.
Looking forward to your paper there.
I'm going to share that as soon as it comes out. Any year now.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye, Karl.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.